Have you ever received a letter from the IRS and immediately felt a pit in your stomach? If so, you may have received what's known as a Notice of Deficiency. I'm Andrew Bosserman. I'm a tax attorney and I'm founder of Boss Tax Law. And in this video, I'm going to quickly go over what an IRS Notice of Deficiency is, what its implications are for you, and how best to respond to a notice of deficiency. So a notice of deficiency from the IRS, it's also sometimes called a statutory notice of deficiency or a 90-day letter, and we'll go into what that 90 days means here later. But it's essentially a formal notice from the IRS stating that you as a taxpayer owe tax and they intend to assess a certain amount of additional tax and possibly penalties and interest after a certain period, generally 90 days, expires. So this notice is generally triggered when the IRS either discovers that you owe additional tax. Either you might have some unreported income, they may have found some expenses that weren't allowed, or credits or other deductions, or it could be a combination of both. So this is a very sort of legal notice from the IRS. It's more than just saying, hey, we think you owe tax. The IRS has moved from that sort of argument or position to saying, hey, we are saying you formally owe this tax. Unless you tell us otherwise, we are going to assess this tax and you'll need to pay us. So why may you have received a notice of deficiency? Generally, they're triggered when the IRS discovers unreported income, and you may have received what's known as a CP 2000 notice, which is the IRS saying, hey, something in our system doesn't match up and it looks like you have additional income you didn't report. Or another common time that you receive a notice of deficiency is after an audit of your tax return. So it doesn't have to be after an audit, it could be other reviews, but generally the IRS discovers additional income or errors in credits or deductions, or you were just audited and you owe additional tax and you didn't agree with the auditor's assessment. So the notice of deficiency is going to contain a number of key important sort of piece of information that's important to know. So first, it's going to show the amount that you owe, or the IRS is saying, proposing that you owe based on their information. And that will generally also include tax, penalties, and interest. And it's also going to give you details. So it might say, hey, we have this 1099 on your account that you didn't report. Or if it's after an audit, they might show the audit adjustments that the IRS examiner made, and that's their support for the additional tax. There's also going to be a very specific deadline to respond, and generally it's 90 days. So that's why this notice is sometimes also called a 90-day letter. And the way to respond to this notice within 90 days, there's a number of different options, but you do have the right to challenge the IRS's assertion. So first of all, if you don't respond at all within the 90-day period, the IRS is going to assess that additional tax and proceed to collection. So that will be sending you notices to pay the amount owed. They could start place a lien on your property. They could start levying bank accounts or other assets, could garnish your wages, but they will proceed into normal collections if you don't respond and the tax is assessed. But there are other ways to respond. So if you agree with the IRS's determination that you owe additional tax, you can just sign the included waiver form and pay the amount owed, or also set up a payment plan if you can't afford to pay the full amount. But if you disagree with the IRS's determination of additional tax, you have the right to file a petition in tax court within 90 days. So that's why this is called a 90-day letter. It gives you 90 days to file a petition in tax court. And once you go to tax court, you can, plead your case. Oftentimes you work with IRS appeals and IRS attorneys. And oftentimes these cases come to a settlement, but it could also go to trial. But that is the next step if you don't agree with the IRS's position in the 90-day letter, you need to file a petition with tax court within 90 days. And it's best to seek out an experienced tax attorney who's filed petitions before in tax court to do this for you, because it's, legal proceedings. Although, you could file the petition on your own, there is a fill-in-the-blank form that you can find on the tax court's website. It's often best to review your position with the tax attorney and have a tax attorney file the petition and represent you, because you'll often get a better outcome. So, in conclusion, if you receive a notice of deficiency, this is an extremely important notice you don't want to ignore. First of all, you should review it to see what the IRS is saying you owe and why you owe the money. It's also best to consult with a tax attorney to go over your options and see if you should file a petition in tax court. And remember, that petition must be filed within 90 days. So you definitely don't want to delay. You don't want to ignore a notice of deficiency. You want to respond timely to it. And oftentimes, the best way to deal with the notice of deficiency is to file a petition and challenge it in tax court. Because even though, say, an IRS agent asserted additional tax, oftentimes you can come to a better resolution of your issue in tax court, or dealing with IRS appeals or IRS attorneys, which is all part of the tax court process. So if you need help with a notice of deficiency or a tax court issue, feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to review your situation with you and how I can help.